everybody, and welcome to Behind the Scenes, an Out of Frame podcast. I am your host, Sean Malone, returning from a couple weeks off. And here, as always, with Jen Mafsanti and Paul Nelson. We tried very, very hard, Paul and I anyway, tried very, very hard to be in studio today, but it just was not happening. So we decided we would try to get this episode done and out. We have to do it all remotely, but I think hopefully the next episode we'll try to be in studio. We're going to work our way back in there. There've been some kind of wild technical difficulties getting Jen mixed into all of this, and we're trying to sort of sort all of that out. But in the meantime, here we are. And after a couple week absence, how are you guys doing? It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to have you back.
Thanks.
Yeah, it is good to see you again.
Yeah, for those, I don't know how much I really want to get into it, but for those who, are interested in why I was out, I had a member of my family die, and it was, kind of a rough couple weeks, but we're kind of getting back into the swing of things a little bit here, and kind of trying to pick up the pieces in terms of work and stuff, which is weird because, like when you're out for a reason like that, it can be really, really tough to kind of come back and figure it out. But it's otherwise, I guess it's going okay. I mean, Paul, you were here the whole week while I was gone. How'd you feel like everything went? Everything still kind of worked out smoothly and everything?
Yeah, I don't think there was too many fires. Jen and I, we manned the ship. I think I don't know. We'll see. If anybody has any comments, please, like we said, let us know. But definitely missed you. Glad you're back. And Fee is still standing, but barely.
That's the best thing. So today, and we'll get to it in a little bit. I think we're going to continue our sort of lead up to the Snyder cut of Justice League. I believe it's officially called Zack Snyder's Justice League now. But so for this week, we watched Justice League. And then for those who support the show on Patreon and Subscribestar, which you can do, you can see the links in the description or in the sidebar here. But for those who support the show, we're going to be talking in our bonus content about Batman versus Superman. So we're going to be doing this a little bit out of order. But before we get to that, I want to say I actually watched the Superman and Lois pilot episode. I haven't actually had time yet to watch. I think the second episode, maybe by the time we record this, the third episode will have been out. But the second episode's already out, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But have you guys had a chance to check that out or take a look at that at all?
No, not yet.
Even aware of it, really?
No.
Even know it's
yeah.
The first I'm hearing of it.
Yeah, I knew that it came out. I just haven't quite gotten to it yet. The legislative session here in Utah is drawing to a close, but it's not over yet. And so that means that everything that hasn't gotten done yet is being done like quick, fast, and in a hurry. So I haven't had a whole lot of free time lately, but hopefully next week.
Fair enough.
Now, is Utah just one session, or do they have multiple sessions throughout the year?
There is the main legislative session, and then there's usually an interim session at some point in time later in the year. But generally speaking, just the main one. Interim is for mostly what didn't get finished during the main session.
Cool. Well, that is, yeah. What were you saying,
imagine
Paul?
if the U.S. government worked like that, just one session a year? I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it would be different. It would be interesting.
And only for 2.5 months.
It would be hard to say, to be honest, because the things that they could be doing in that time versus what they're doing now. I mean, it's weird. Oh man, I guess we should talk about that a little bit too. One thing, Jen, that Paul and I are starting to talk about is this is really this is actually very behind the scenes of Fee stuff going on. But we have potentially, we haven't sort of worked out all the details yet, but we have maybe access, or we're going to start getting some access to some Capitol Hill footage and potentially live interviews with Congress people for Fee and for like Fee.org's editorial content, and also maybe for some videos that we do. It's sort of a C-SPAN type of service that we're talking with. It's actually got a permanent position in the in like filming location, basically, in Congress. So we may actually have some access to some of that kind of content in the near future, and I'm kind of curious as to what we would do with it, or where we will go with it. But it's kind of an interesting thing. But right now, I mean, for the most part, all of that kind of stuff, like whenever you see it on the news, it's just like people being lunatics, and then reporters asking gotcha questions. And I don't think we would use it for that, but I don't know. It's like asking Mike Lee questions about Bitcoin or something. I'm not really sure what we'll actually end up with, but
yeah.
But my gosh. Anyway, another piece of news here too, and I'm not really sure if we'll have this all sorted out yet either, but. And then I guess I'll get back to the Superman and Lois stuff in a minute, because that was kind of interesting. But Fee, as I think most of our listeners probably know, has been dealing with a lot on YouTube for, in the realm of like age restrictions and demonetizations. And, and also we've always dealt with copyright issues on YouTube, just because doing a movie focused series is really, really hard to deal with in those terms. So we're actually starting. I don't think I'm going to give away everything just yet, but I do want people to know that we're actually also starting to figure out ways of diversifying where we're posting a lot of this content. So a little bit of that's fresh on my mind too, because we've had a lot of, I kind of mentioned up front, we had a whole bunch of technical difficulties with the podcast, but also earlier today, I had a whole bunch of technical difficulties with just trying to get around YouTube's algorithms and copyright issues. And I'm still kind of reeling from those problems. I think we're on the cusp anyway of having a really good solution for that. So there's a lot of actually important news going on with that kind of stuff.
We also, on a separate bit of information, where we just opened up the Henry Hazlitt Educational Journalism Fellowship, where you can apply and work with us, work with our editorial team to create content and continue spreading the word of liberty. So that's pretty exciting development.
That one's going to be really cool. It's basically, I think we decided it was going to be 6 months. Sorry, Paul, forgive me if I'm getting the facts wrong here a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it's 6 months with a monthly stipend, and you really get to work with a lot of great people. And I know already, I don't know, Paul, if you've even heard this yet, but we've gotten a whole bunch of applicants already, even in the last few days. So it seems like that is off to a really good start, and I can only imagine that going really, really well in the future. Yeah. So also, Jen, if you know anybody who would be good for that, which I'm sure you do, send them our way as well.
I absolutely will. Seeing as how I did start my career at Fee in the content department, the written content department, I highly recommend it. They're good folks there, wonderful learning experience. Can't say enough good about it.
So I want to get back to Superman and Lois, because I think it's going to tie in a little bit to our overall Justice League discussion here, because the thing, so it's a CW show. All right. So like disclaimers abound with CW and everything else around that. And it is officially part of the quote unquote Arrowverse. It's actually, I think, directly linked to Supergirl, which I think is ending this season, pretty sure. But the same guy, and forgive me, everybody, for not looking up the guy's name or anything like that, but the guy who's been playing Superman on Supergirl is playing Superman here, and so it's really directly connected. And it's set in a universe where this version of Superman is already married to Lois Lane. They already have a couple kids, and in fact, the kids are teenagers at this point. So my expectation is that it's going to be a lot more about family and a lot more about the dynamics of trying to be Superman, or frankly, to be a world famous Pulitzer Prize winning reporter and raise kids and do all that kind of stuff. But it was kind of an interesting pilot because there's hints of some of the things that I guarantee you the CW is going to screw up at some point in the near future. They're going to go down roads that are probably way more annoying and sort of political and everything else, as Supergirl has, frankly. That's going to be kind of mediocre about it. But I do have to say, the opening sequence, especially like the reintroduction of Superman doing Superman things, was really, really good. I mean, it was really excellently, very, very well done. And it's something that I wanted to talk about a little bit on this episode, just because the difference between watching Superman save people and actually really put serious effort into protecting human life, and really was done very, very well in the opening of this CW show, is just so refreshing, coming after watching Justice League and Batman versus Superman, where it just feels like all Superman does is be angry and brooding, and like, and you guys did the Man of Steel discussion without me, and which is really kind of tragic because this is like really my bread and butter for the three of us. But like, my gosh, I can't imagine you guys watching Batman or, watching Man of Steel and not thinking like, where's the heroism in a lot of these things? And Man of Steel is the best of them. I mean, it's the best incarnation of the three of Superman being Superman, right? And he's not really even Superman in that movie. So it's kind of crazy to me that the TV show version of Superman, currently anyway, is probably going to be a way more, philosophically and like ethically accurate representation of that character than anything that we've seen on the big screen. And I say that with a lot of sadness, because I think Henry Cavill is just a brilliant, brilliant choice for the character. And he's charming. Like, he is a very charming guy when you give him roles. Like, I mean, I think I just watched Critical Drinkers episode about Enola Holmes. I was thinking about Enola Holmes. Henry Cavill doesn't have a huge role in that. He plays Sherlock Holmes in that movie. But every single scene he's in, he is lovely and wonderful and charming. And he's exactly the kind of guy that you would think would play a really great Clark Kent and play a really great Superman and a really bright, uplifting character. And instead, we got Justice League. So I guess with that in mind, let's get right into it. Paul, I'm going to ask you this question because I feel like it's likely. Was this your first viewing of Justice League, or did you see it before?
No, this is my first time. I had made it so far, so long, without having to watch these movies. There was nothing. We touched on it on Man of Steel about how it gets close to being interesting and being good, but then it just forgets that, our character actually is supposed to be saving humanity, not just flying through buildings and melting people and killing a family of 4 to save the day. So I don't know. The DCEU is just a mess in general. I don't know who knows what the Zack Snyder cut's going to be. Apparently they shot like 85% new material, so
there's a lot of. It's my understanding that there's a lot of new material. Are you, real quick before we get into the plot of, because I think we're going to need to set this up with a little bit of Batman versus Superman, just so everybody's on the same page with where the Justice League plot starts. But before we get to that, I actually want to know: are you guys aware of the other news that's just come out about J.J. Abrams potentially being involved?
Yes.
In a new Superman movie.
Yes. And
JJ, Yeah.
Is there going to be a child, and then they're going to be, it's Lex Luthor's granddaughter, and then she takes up the name Kent at the end while burying something in Kansas?
Dude, I don't even know where to go, because it's theoretically it's J.J. Abrams directing or producing, I'm not quite sure which, and Ta-Nehisi Coates writing, and I frankly I can't imagine a worse pairing for this character, or for like this whole world, actually. Like I mean. Yeah. Like, I can imagine more explosions than we've already gotten in the Zack Snyder movies.
And lens flares.
And a lot of lens flares. We're going to get a lot of additional lens flares. We didn't get that many lens flares with Zack Snyder. We could probably stand to amp that up by about 10,000%, which JJ will probably do. Yeah. But sure. Also, JJ has never, as far as I'm aware anyway, I don't think he's ever finished a story in his entire life. So, like, there are things about J.J. Abrams that I really like, actually. Like, he does certain things really, really well, and actually, in a sense, sort of similar to Zack Snyder, where it's like, if he's not the one writing the story, he's a pretty good director in a lot of ways. He's a very exciting, very kinetic director. And so I'm sure he can do Superman action scenes very, very well, but much like the problems with Zack Snyder, I think we're going to end up with an entire movie that is one giant Superman action scene. And then frankly, with Ta-Nehisi Coates writing, probably with some Black Power message, like in the mix somewhere in there, which I'm not really sure how that'll work out, but some very collectivist message will wind its way into the story. But
the most recent rumor says that Clark Kent isn't even going to be in this one.
Then why?
No,
what are we?
That makes.
I don't know.
Then why?
Why is this movie?
Why? Yes, yeah, Jen. Why
That's my reaction to a lot of the movies that that I watched recently. Just why is this?
Okay. So let's get into Justice League then, because Justice League, there is a why is this movie, and that why is this movie is the DCEU is desperately trying to make money and keep their whole entire gigantic ship afloat. That's why that movie exists. But look, so let's go back. So Batman versus Superman, and I'm not going to get into it a ton because we are going to talk about it in the Patreon bonus section. But Batman versus Superman basically set up it was so convoluted, but it was multiple stories from the comics being told simultaneously. So there's the Dark Knight trilogy, the Frank Miller series, where Batman and Superman actually fight for really dumb ideological reasons, if I'm being honest. But like, to take a step back here, by the way, Frank Miller hates Superman as a character, and that is very apparent in the Dark Knight and in all of the Dark Knight Returns stuff that he did. But anyway, so they have that big fight, and that's ripped straight out of the pages of the Dark Knight Returns. All the Batman power armor stuff and all that is almost like shot for shot in some cases directly pulled from that comic. But then at the same time, we have the Death of Superman series, which, or sort of mini series, big event comic, which has Doomsday killing Superman. And Snyder somehow thought it was a good idea, or the DCEU thought it was a good idea to merge those things, and especially to do it prior to the introduction of any of the other Justice League characters. So you've barely established Superman at this point. You've not established Batman, the Ben Affleck incarnation of Batman. When Batman versus Superman came out, they hadn't even done the Wonder Woman movie yet, standalone movie. So you're introducing Batman, you're introducing Wonder Woman, you're hinting at the Flash and Aquaman and all these other movies you want to do, and yet you haven't even fully established Superman as Superman yet. You've basically ended the previous movie with him as Superman for the first time, right? And now you kill Superman. Sorry, spoilers, but it's been many years at this point. I feel like it's fine.
Yeah, fans.
you kill, and also, by the way, they spoiled it in the trailer for that movie. Thank you very much. I don't know if you guys remember this, but they revealed in the final trailers running up to Batman versus Superman, they did the reveal of Doomsday, which is like, if you're at all familiar with Superman comics, you would go, oh, they're gonna do Death of Superman, so Superman's probably gonna die in this movie, and you're doing Doomsday, and you're doing Lex Luthor, and you're doing, Batman and Superman fighting, and everything is just so cacophonously messy, right? And it's off of the heels of all of that we get Justice League, which is just like, where do you even go at that point? And the answer is you try to bring Superman back to life, I guess. Which, okay, why not?
Sure.
But Jen, I assume this was not your first time through this movie, but am I wrong? Am I wrong about that?
Actually, it was, but only because I had heard that it was so phenomenally bad from literally everybody who'd seen it. They're like, don't watch it. You're going to hate it. It's a mess. Even my husband was like, Jen, sweetie, it's not, don't do this to yourself. You're better than this. So this was the first time I actually sat down and made myself watch this version of Justice League. And you are 100% correct. It is a mess of a movie. We really needed at least three or four movies, standalone movies for each of the, describing a lot of the other characters before this movie was even attempted, much less trying to get them all together in the same room and working together. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, I don't really know why that choice was made either, because I mean, the thing is, there's a part of me that thinks DC looked at, and Warner Brothers looked at Marvel, and they looked at the success of the Avengers, because that was 2012 already, and these movies we're talking about 2016, 2017, so they probably looked at the success of the Avengers and thought, well, we got to just jump in and get the Avengers, the DC's equivalent of the Avengers going. But they should have looked at Marvel's. They should have looked at Kevin Feige's roadmap for this and thought, like, how do we develop a universe rather than saying, how do we just drop one on the audience like a giant house carried by Superman?
Like, before we got the Avengers, we had a Captain America standalone, we had a Thor standalone, we had 2 Iron Man movies.
2. Plus, in all technicality, you had Hulk. You had the Incredible Hulk, which, while it's not very connected to the MCU otherwise, did actually feature the first cameo from Sam Jackson as Nick Fury. That was the first iteration of that character was in that movie, suggesting that Bruce Banner should join the Avengers, and Bruce Banner going that would be a terrible, terrible idea, which he's not wrong actually, but I mean,
that is an important setup.
Yeah, it's a lot of development.
We need to be invested in this. Yeah, we need to be invested in these characters. We need to be invested in this universe. We need to care why these people are in the same room on the same team trying to accomplish the same thing, other than the fact that we gotta.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, because here's a thing for me anyway. One of the big failings, I think, of the Justice League movie is that it pretends like Batman versus Superman and even Man of Steel really were completely different than what they actually were. Like, it really paints a picture of Superman and of the relationships between characters that was never earned on screen anywhere. And I think this is probably the biggest failing in the movie, because Bruce, basically Batman, played by Ben Affleck, who, by the way, I actually don't mind as Batman. I think everybody thought that he was going to be a horrible, horrible Batman, and he's honestly one of my favorites out of the actors that we've seen play that role I think he handles both Bruce Wayne and Batman pretty well. But the problem is the story itself makes it seem like at the end of Batman versus Superman, he and Superman were best friends and had been best friends for a long time when they barely knew each other, and Diana, Wonder Woman barely knew any of them by the end of that movie. And the world's association with Superman at this point was, it couldn't have been anything other than either just utterly terrifying, because they would have seen him on the news crashing through buildings in Metropolis or Gotham, just destroying everything. I mean, I will give Batman versus Superman this. Its opening sequence is fantastic, because it takes the terrifying end sequence of Man of Steel and shows it from Bruce Wayne's ground level perspective. And you need that perspective to see where Bruce Wayne is coming from in that movie. But the problem is there's no way to get to the end of Batman versus Superman and then the beginning of Justice League and think that they're buddies now. They are at best like acquaintances who now would tolerate each other in a way that at the beginning of the movie they were enemies, right? So how do you get to Bruce Wayne basically pining for, everybody's favorite superhero, Superman, who nobody seemed to care about in the actual universe? And even in Batman versus Superman, there are literal congressional hearings with protesters to decide whether or not people are happy with Superman doing what he's doing. So it's not like he was this beloved emblem of hope and justice and truth and all these things that like those of us who are familiar with the character outside the context of these movies would understand Superman to be. We don't have any of that in the movies. So it just, why? Like, it just doesn't make any sense from that standpoint.
Because that's what the script said. There are so many examples in this movie of like, why did that happen? Well, that's what it says in the script. So
right,
we're going to go with that.
Oh. Yeah. So Paul, you're I would love to get your like broadest impressions, because as a first time viewer, I mean, like, because I've seen this movie several times now at this point. So even like rewatching it for this was maybe my third, I think, possibly my third or fourth time going through this. Maybe actually more, because I watched it twice in the theaters, because I went back to decide whether or not the things that annoyed me about it were actually valid. And then I ended up walking out more annoyed than I was the first time. So,
yeah. No, the Justice League feels like it was made by a bunch of people in a boardroom that just were concerned about starting a franchise and kind of missed the point of needing to tell a coherent or passable story to keep people interested. I think what's really disappointing about the DCEU in general is that, I don't know if you guys agree or not, but compared to the characters in the Marvel movies, I mean, it's hard to compare now, but just on paper, the DC characters are just better. They're more interesting. Their backgrounds are varied, but they've messed it up so bad and so have done it over and over again. Superman no longer.
I know.
I just don't care about this character anymore, and it's going to
so
take a lot to repair that. What was that?
No, it's super bizarre to me, because you have literally the three top performing characters of all time on that side. Like Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, there is no comparison even to Marvel characters. Like Spider-Man and Wolverine come somewhat close, but even that you can see like as characters to write, Spider-Man and Wolverine aren't nowhere near the same kind of character. They're interesting for their own reasons and stuff, but like these are literally, I mean, and they're modeled this way too. I mean, DC did this deliberately, but they're modeled to be a pantheon. I mean, they're modeled to be these like world-breaking, massively powerful characters that do, galactic level things. And yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre to me that you started from that point and couldn't figure out exactly what to do with it.
Right.
It's
I mean, even the character Cyborg is vastly more interesting than almost all the characters in the Marvel universe, and they barely touch on it. And I'm watching this movie saying, "Where's the Cyborg movie? I want to see this character's origin story. I want to see grapple with that question of, is this ethical to bring him back like this? It's a father's love that pushed his dad to bring him back, but is that okay? And then him having to struggle with his new life. It's fascinating, but
not to mention, by the way, so not to get into the meta aspects of this, but the actor that they chose to play his dad, Victor Stone's dad, is Miles Dyson from Terminator, which is phenomenal because it's like he's the creator of Skynet, and they brought him in to play God with his son in the same way, which I just think as a meta thing was like a really genius move anyway. But also, like, you're right, that's a really compelling and interesting conversation to have. Like, and you can see both sides of it, right? Like, you could easily see Victor Stone being very upset about this because he was brought back to life in circumstances that were completely unbeknownst to him and like completely outside of human experience, which would be terrifying and weird and everything else. But then you could also easily see his dad going like, I'm going to do anything I could possibly do to save my son. And, so that sets up some interesting drama that they could have played. But that said, I think Ray Fisher has some words for you about why they didn't go that direction, since he seems to have had many words with everybody in that realm about the mistreatment of him and his character and everything else. And I can't speak to a whole lot of that, although obviously Joss Whedon, there have been stories about Joss Whedon, being sort of a tyrant on set for a while, but
not a good person.
Man, no, but you're right. I think that would have been a really interesting. That would have been a really interesting movie to start with. Like, and also it would be a movie that you could do really separately from everything else and not have to worry too much about how it interplayed with other stuff. Right. High school football star, dies in an explosion, is brought back to life by his, sort of mad scientist dad. You don't need all of the other characters. You don't need Batman to be in that movie, and you don't even need a big villain in that movie. You don't need like a Darkseid or a, sort of a Lex Luthor bad guy. You just need the terror of the situation, really, to be interesting.
And to make sure that it's a proper setup for Justice League, all you have to do is just like casually mention the mother box right there in the lab. Mm-hmm. And then that's it. Job done.
Yep. No, for sure. I mean, I think same thing with like if you were to do, now I don't really like Ezra Miller as Flash in particular, but similarly, you could do a Flash movie. I mean, honestly, this is one of the things that the CW has also done really well, is just get the tone of Flash right. And Grant Gustin is a very good Flash because he's a very upbeat, very positive, very heroic guy. And that's really what that character is. That character is like he's really one of the only superhero characters I'm even aware of who is the Flash, who is very excited to be a superhero, who's like beloved by his community, and who doesn't, like, he gets the keys to the city and they have like Flash Day and stuff, and they all like him. Nobody's afraid of him. Nobody thinks he's scary. Nobody, protests the Flash when he shows up. And he himself is a guy who's just thrilled to be in that position. And then the guy that they brought into Justice League is like a neurotic weirdo who doesn't, literally doesn't have any friends. And it's just a very, very weird departure for that character.
Yeah.
And I think it could have made sense with that character if they actually spent some time and maybe actually have his own story, because his characteristics and the brief time they spent just with him trying to get his dad out of jail for, I guess, wrongfully being convicted for killing his mom. Yeah, that could lead to some bad outcomes for personality traits, but we just gloss on over it, and he's just cracking one-liners, and it just feels forced. But there's there's actually interesting stuff, because it's criminal justice system, father issues, mother, like there's a lot of stuff you can dive into, but nope, gotta again blow some more buildings up. So next.
But see, and the funny thing is, like that whole storyline, and it plays out in the way that Flash is normally depicted in terms of his normal backstory, is that like unlike Batman, where the death of his parents results in this brooding, horrible, sort of fear-based character, who's really exploring kind of the seedy, dark side of humanity. Like Flash's response to the injustice that was suffered on his dad and the loss of his mom simultaneously is to become an investigator. It's to become somebody who is going to solve crimes so that these crimes won't happen to other people. It's actually a very positive variant on that story. It's like, instead of going into this very dark place of like sadness and depression and whatever else, Flash is like, no, Dad, I'm going to get you out of prison. I'm going to prove that you're innocent. And along the way, I'm going to solve all these other crimes, which is was also a cool story. I mean, you kind of do that with, well, not that exactly, but you can see how things like the Shazam movie, which I actually tend to think increasingly, I think is the best of all of the DC movies.
Without question, it's the best. It's not. I don't even think it's a close contest.
I don't think it's that close of a contest either. Although I have a soft spot for Aquaman for a lot of reasons. It is. It leans into the absurdity in a way, in a sort of a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of way that I kind of dig. Like if you're gonna go there, you should go there, and you should have giant crabs on the bottom of the ocean fighting in a massive battle. You should just do it because it's Aquaman. Yeah. So just do it, run with it. But the thing I love about Shazam is that Shazam it takes all of the heroic attributes, and he doesn't start out that way. He has to learn to be a hero. He has to learn to be part of a family. It's all of these elements coming together. So there's actually a story arc happening simultaneously. But rather importantly, it also showed that you can do a very bright, positive movie in this world. So you could totally do it with Superman. You could totally do it with Flash. You could totally do it with, you're not going to do it with Cyborg, obviously, but there are plenty of other characters in the DC world that can sustain and support positivity. And at no point has the DCEU in its biggest incarnations even attempted a positive message or a positive approach to storytelling, which I think is bizarre, because you've got the emblematic hero of all heroes, the most iconic superhero of all time, superhero, like ground zero superhero, right? Like, who is the embodiment of optimism and the truth, justice, and the American way thing it's the most optimistic thing you can ever say, really. It's that freedom and individualism in a philosophical sense, not atomistic, but like family and community, and all of these things are what Superman really represents. And this one represents kind of nothing. Himself a little bit, not really even, maybe not saving people. Who knows?
I don't know. This whole Superman character, Man of Steel, when he wrecks his hometown, and has no remorse that he just destroyed either countless lives or those people's livelihoods, and just moves on. No big deal. What is this?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go with that in a lot of ways. I think of a little bit of an idea. I'm blanking on who said it, and I'm going to kick myself when I remember who was the one who pitched this idea. But it's an idea of like a Justice League movie where essentially Darkseid comes in and tries to destroy the Justice League, and he's destroying buildings, and he's like putting people in harm's way, but he's not really paying attention to what all the side characters are doing. And the idea of the sort of story was that, like, while Darkseid thinks that he is murdering all of these people and destroying humanity and winning, basically, because he's destroying all these buildings, when we look back on the scene, what we discover sort of in retrospect is that the Justice League working together has saved every single human being that was put in harm's way. And like, yeah, the buildings got destroyed and everything else, but like the idea of the team saving the people, right, it was really powerful story idea. And it always sort of stuck with me a little bit as a really great sort of Justice League story. But the thing for me with this movie is like, it's like when you look at, and this carries through from Man of Steel all the way to Justice League, which is just like, the best that we get are a couple throwaway lines like, well, that dock is abandoned or whatever. You're like, well, okay. So first of all, what are the stakes then, really? Because if the dock is abandoned, then we're just talking about derelict buildings and stuff. Although there's probably people living there. I mean, people live, homeless people live in derelict buildings all the time. So,
you're going to tell me there aren't any homeless people in Gotham City?
I think there are some homeless people in Gotham City, but maybe not anymore, depending on what we've just been through. But all that kind of stuff is like, one, now the stakes don't mean anything because we're not actually in it to save human beings in any kind of meaningful way. And then two, it's like, it's such a throwaway because what we actually want to see and what I would actually pay for really is the catharsis of seeing, actual acts of heroism. And that's why, like, again, going back to this Superman and Lois show, that the couple opening sequences, you guys should do yourselves a favor, just like watching, because you can find the clip of it. You can find clips of it. Just the opening sequence, just the reintroduction of Superman himself. And it's like, there's more heroism packed in that one, 5 minutes or whatever than the entirety of the 2.5 hours of Justice League. And so I don't know. I'm really curious as to how Snyder's going to, like, what's Snyder going to do? Because honestly, when I look at his movies that I think of are really his best movies, and I'm thinking about 300 or I'm thinking about Watchmen, really in these cases, they're good fits for Snyder because they are themselves very dark stories. Like, they're stories that are gritty and aggressive and like they lend themselves to stylization, and to his particular aesthetic. Justice League kind of doesn't. It's not a really great fit for Zack Snyder. It's a much worse fit, unfortunately, for J.J. Abrams, but that's a whole other problem we're going to have to deal with in the future, I think. But like, I don't know. I'm 100% going to watch there's no way that I would ever not watch that, but just given my interests and such. But like, I'm very, very curious as to where he's going to go with an extra 2 hours or whatever to play with. I don't know. I mean, I've seen all of the footage that's come out so far from the extended cut, from the Snyder cut, and some of it is interesting to me. For one thing, it seems like he shot a lot more of the Death of Superman stuff, where Superman returns and actually needs some time to heal and sort of recollect himself and stuff, which could potentially help the movie, especially if it is accompanied by like character change in some kind of way. Like, did he learn something from this experience? But I don't know. It seems like a lot of it is just really bombastic, like apocalypse stuff, war world like Darkseid, kind of like really big galactic, kind of things that I just don't think the universe is ready for. Like, I don't think their cinematic universe is ready for that stuff. But it may never be ready.
After Man of Steel and after Batman versus Superman, I just don't have a whole lot of faith that there's any bringing this back. I'm to the point where I'm of the opinion that the DC cinematic universe needs to be scrapped and restarted in a few years once the sting is worn off.
I agree, except for it's sad to me because I think their casting has been really, really good. And
I agree.
And I also think that, like, I agree with you. I don't think you can salvage it the way that it is. But I'm also then doubly concerned if their idea of rebooting it involves JJ and Ta-Nehisi Coates. Like, I don't know. It seems like the opposite of the right lesson to learn, Like, what those movies need is more humanity. They don't need more bombastic, like, divisive kind of stuff, which is exactly what we get from those two. So I don't really know. I don't know. It's like they're not. It's like they're trying to screw it up at this point, which I don't. I can't, like, I really struggle to wrap my brain around why you would do that. But that's kind of how it feels.
It just screams to me. You see these companies and organizations that are just kind of incompetent from the top down. This is what it really feels like, because you just look over. Even though Disney, we rail against Disney a lot, but they do, at least with the Marvel universe, they give a lot of leeway to the creators. And you see what they can do with characters in WandaVision, with two characters before the latest show I didn't care about at all. We talked about this in the WandaVision episode we did about a month or so ago when the show was just getting started. But now I am deeply invested in these characters, and I want to keep watching and see what happens next. Yeah. And I watched Justice League just a couple days ago, and I've honestly, the bugs, who are they? I don't know. Don't care.
Well, they don't even matter. I mean, that's the only thing that
stuck with me.
That is kind of the crazy thing too, because they're called parademons. In case anybody
bugs.
Well, they're not really. They're basically like they're people or sentient beings from around the galaxy that Darkseid has converted into these drones, these slaves essentially. Which, by the way, could be interesting if that was explained to you at any point, that there is this horrible, intergalactic monster who has gone around enslaving other worlds and turning them into these sort of mindless bug creatures. But, honestly, like, it's fine to me to have some of those mysteries, because especially if you're building up to a really big bad like Darkseid, you need some of these things, right? Like, you need some, like, oh, what the heck was that? But nobody really addressed it. Like, nobody at any point was like, what are these weirdos? Like, where these things come from? Or why are they here, other than just to say, oh, we have this mother box thing and they want it. There's not a lot of, like, emphasis on, well, where do they come from? What do they do? What are their powers? What are, they're clearly mindless bug creatures. Don't really, they're not the ones calling the shots. So who's calling the shots? No conversation about that at all. No interest, as far as I can tell, in that. Let's just fight the bugs. Just punch the bugs. Okay.
We gotta
punch the bugs. I don't know. I mean, that kind of stuff, like, it sinks these kinds of movies in a way that I just don't. I think that we should have learned those lessons by now, and it feels like they're still struggling with it in a big way. And it's really sad to me, because it like sort of puts in jeopardy everything that they have done that's actually interesting. You know, like Joker was interesting, and Shazam is interesting, and like I said, I even think Aquaman is interesting, and Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman movie was interesting. The second Wonder Woman movie, much less interesting, unfortunately. But like, you know, again, it's kind of to my point, like you had a really good thing, like right in the palm of your hand, and you could have developed it and turned it into something great. And instead you have a literal cat fight. I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't work, you know? I don't know. It's a bummer.
DC is good at anything. It's
I don't know how well you guys can
defeat
do this or how anybody can do this. Trying to figure out how to do this. Literally have Superman behind me, right there. The I don't know if you guys can really see it from here because it's pretty far away and everything. But that there's a couple Superman figures back there, but the one that's like right in front of in front of one of my awards is from the Fleischer cartoons, and it's Superman carrying Lois. But it's I go back a long time with this character, and it's something that like I care about a lot, and it's weird to me to see you have models like the Fleischer cartoons from the 40s, which you could draw on, and you could draw on that tone and some of the themes from even just from those animated shorts, and you would do a better job of representing Superman than 2.5 hours of like a $300 million movie, you know?
Yeah, but we have real problems we need to address now, Sean. In 1940, They didn't have any problems at all.
No problems.
It was all great.
Zero problems in the 40s.
Zero economic problems. Zero problems with bad political ideologies taking over the world. Like, no, nothing to worry about in the 40s at all. Nothing at all. Oh my gosh. All right, let's wrap up Justice League, and then for patrons, let's take a step backwards and talk about Batman versus Superman. So this discussion is going to keep going, but for everybody who is a patron of the show, I say patron, but a supporter on Patreon or Subscribestar, A, we love you, and B, stick around for the next bonus section. And for everybody else, we still totally appreciate you guys watching and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Also, we've been growing on the behind the scenes YouTube channel, which is great too. So subscribe there if you haven't done that, and be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, all over the place, and actually some more places coming soon. So we will see you guys next time.